Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my October wrap-up, and I managed to read 12 books in October, and 8 of those books were for readathons or reading challenges. So I am going to start with the 4 books that were not for reading challenges, and then talk about the books. Then talk about what I finished for the A to Z horror reading challenge, spookathon, and Halloweenathon. Okay, so the first thing I finished that was not for a readathon is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This was actually a group read for September, and I didn't finish it until October 3rd. And Fairy Tale, not my favorite Stephen King. I really liked the first half of the story that had this really heartwarming story of this boy helping out an older man take care of his dog while he's in the hospital, and then the old man gives him this secret that leads him into another world. It's kind of a portal fantasy. I really like the story, the background story of the characters. I loved it. It was very heartwarming and wonderful, beautiful, and the dog character is fantastic. I love him. But the fantasy part of the story, I thought, was a bit lacking. There was just something off about the fantasy elements, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I did like that it paid homage to like a bunch of different very well-known fantasy books, especially Wizard of Oz, but many others are mentioned as well. And yeah, that I really enjoyed. And there were some very creative ideas, and it had a dark twist. Oh yeah, Grim Fairy Tales is another one mentioned more often. So I liked the ideas. It might have been just the shift, the tonal shift from this real world story that I was really loving into this fantasy type situation. So a lot of elements I liked and some I didn't. I gave it 3 stars. Then Revival by Stephen King was this month's Stephen King pick for the group read, and I really like this one. I wouldn't say it's up in my favorites, but it was enjoyable all the way through, so there's that. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This one is about a man who can harness the power of electricity to do some miraculous things that seem like miracles, but can have unexpected repercussions. Yeah, that was a good one. I also listened to The Time of Contempt by Andrzej Sapkowski, which is the 2nd novel or the 4th book in the Witcher series. I had a hold for the audiobook in my library for like a few months, and it finally came up, and I had 2 weeks to listen to it, so I did that. I don't know if it was just I wasn't in the mood for fantasy or what. I didn't like it as much as the first novel in the story. Maybe it really expanded the world and the politics going on in this world, and maybe I just wasn't quite ready for that. I did like it quite a bit though. I like the series. It's not my favorite series, but it is pretty good. That would have been about 3.5 stars. Then I read The Witch in the Well, and I did a full review on this book. I'll have that link down below if you want more information. This one was by Camilla Bruce. It's a new release, and it's about the history of a very strange well and a witch that was drowned in it, uncovering the mystery, told through two women trying to tell the story. It had wonderful atmosphere, and I didn't quite like how the story was told. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Now let's get into the reading challenges. The first one is the A to Z Horror Reading Challenge, which was hosted by John from Books of Blood. And I finished 10 prompts for that challenge. For the body prompt and extreme horror prompt, I read The Woman Shrouded in Flies by Nicholas Gray. And this was just a short little novelette. And this one had some great creepy scenes in it. One in particular, like, really made my skin crawl. And the deliciously horrible descriptions of a certain dead body in this. Ooh. Yeah, there were some things that I really liked in this. There were a couple of things I didn't like as well. The beginning, the character work was really good. I thought he developed his main character in the family well, but there were just a couple of elements that made this extreme that I was not into. I liked the gross things, but I didn't like other more sexual aspects to the story. So that is just a preference thing. And I can't wait to read more from Nicholas Gray because he's really developing his storytelling. Then for creepy kids and occult and young adult, I read The Devil's End by D.A. Fowler. And young adult is strictly because the main characters are young adults. This was a very adult novel, I think. There was some horrendous content. It was really fast-paced. Definitely had those occult vibes going on. There was some really horrible teenagers in this book, and adults. Everyone was horrible. So trigger warnings, all of them. But some of the parts really did seem like YA and real young people doing regular teenage things, but then they would do some horrendous things. Okay. It didn't necessarily age well in some instances. It is a 90s book. It was not PC in any fashion. Okay. For folk, I read The Hay Bale by Priscilla Bettis, who is a subscriber, commenter on so many horror channels here on BookTube, and this was a short novelette, short story about a woman who moves into a house in the country, and there's this weird hay bale in the backyard, and really, it's so short, I don't want to give anything else away, but it is a folk horror story having to do with this hay bale, and it is creepy and gross. I really enjoyed this story. The writing was great. The characters, great in this, what is happening in this small town. I just loved it. For the gothic prompt, I read Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LeFanu. Just very short vampire gothic novel predating Dracula, and this one has female energy, female vampires. There were some, sapphic vibes. Wasn't really in your face, but undertoned, and it was a beautiful story. Beautiful language, writing, mysterious and atmospheric, and I really liked it. For the haunting prompt, I ended up counting Bones by Andrew Cull, because these stories, most of them had to do with ghosts, spirits, and especially the first one comes to mind, Did You Forget Me, is about a boy whose best friend dies when he's young, and when he grows up, he comes back to his house and starts to be haunted by his childhood friend. The stories in here were really great. All 4 of them had great character development. Andrew Cull is great with character development, and they all tugged at the heartstrings. They were all very emotional stories, which is kind of my jam. So I ended up loving this collection and gave it 5 stars. For monsters, I counted At the Mercy of Beasts by Ed Kurtz. I have 3 Ed Kurtz books and finally read one of them. Hooray! And oh my gosh, I should have read these earlier. So these are like historical horror stories. There are, I think it's novella length. They seem longer. Yeah, they're like 60 to 80 pages long, and they all had monsters. Like, yeah, this was definitely a monster story book, and I was into it. The first one is about a mine. No, not a mine. It is, they're drilling for oil, and they end up finding a monster underneath the ground, and their greed for money ends up in disaster, right? The monster in this one, oh my gosh, so incredibly creepy and original and bizarre. Loved it. All of the stories were really set up well with great storytelling, telling about this situation they're in, the time period, the people, and then the monsters are just amazing. So I'm definitely going to be reading more from Ed Kurtz soon, hopefully. But that was really good. And then finally, for supernatural, I read Cold Moon Over Babylon by Michael McDowell. I've been wanting to read more Michael McDowell, and I finally got to this one. And it was so incredibly good. This is a supernatural story. It's also Southern Gothic, takes place in a small town, southern town, by a river, the river Styx, and there is wicked things happening right from the start in here. Some parts are more building the atmosphere and the town and everything, but there is some real creepy stuff in here. Ghosts, and it's a ghost story. And there's also human monsters as well. It's just all around creepy horror fun. Love this book. 5 stars. Okay, now I also read some books for the Halloween-a-thon, which is hosted by Paul's Books and Movies. In October, I read the October prompt, an October Halloween read. For that, I read Usher's Passing by Robert McCammon. It's a long book, but I got through it, as well as 11 other books because I'm amazing, I guess. Anyway, I love this Robert McCammon book. I've loved every Robert McCammon book I've read so far, which admittedly is only this one and Boy's Life. They're both amazing. This one is kind of has to do with the Usher family from Usher, Follow the House of Usher in the Edgar Allan Poe story. This has a timeline in the past that actually has Edgar Allan Poe and an Usher from back in the day, and then there's a more modern timeline with the Ushers in present day, and there is a bunch of family secrets, and the family owns a weapons company developing and selling weapons, and so they are filthy rich, and there are a lot of weird family secrets and things going on with them. There's one brother that is a writer, and he wants nothing to do with the family's business or the money or anything like that, but he is brought back into the fold when his father is dying, and yeah, it's about their family and yes, all of the secrets. Love it. 5 stars. Then I made up prompts for my name. The M prompt was monsters. Originally I had it as medical and manners. Medical horror and manners. I was going to read Leech for that, but I ended up DNFing it. So then I switched it to monsters, and I counted At the Mercy of Beasts by Ed Kurtz for that prompt. Yay me. I love that book. And then S is for my last name, and I made the prompt Spirits and Supernatural, which I counted Cold Moon Over Babylon for that. And those are the ones I finished this month. Then I did Spookathon, which is hosted by Stephanie's Thoughts and Reader's Retreat. I ended up finishing 4 out of the 6 challenges, prompts, for a book to sink your teeth in, which is a vampire book. I read Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LeFanu. For It's a Little Creepy, read a short horror, I read The Woman Shrouded in Flies by Nicholas Gray. For In the Creepy Attic, read a book with a family secret. I read Usher's Passing by Robert R. McCammon. And then for Campfire Stories, read a book about ghosts or myths of ghosts. I read Cold Moon Over Babylon. I also could have counted Bones. I didn't know those were ghost stories, but some of them were. And I have gone over all 12 of the books that I read in October. Let me know if you took part in any of these reading challenges and how did you do, and if you've read any of the books that I did in October. I'd love to hear what you thought of them. Also love to know what your favorite book of the month was. I had so many standout books this month. But I think, gosh, here's my 4 favorites. This is my 4th favorite. 3rd favorite. Second favorite, 1st favorite. Tie, maybe. I think maybe a tie. Yeah, so I'd like to hear all of the bookish things down in the comments, and I will be back very soon with another book-related video. Thanks.